Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special episode of Pseudo Killas. We called it PK on politics. Yeah, so we wanted to kind of let you all know the, the expanded part of our repertoire. Like, we just don't deal with the same subjects, but more importantly, not only are we here to talk about some politics, particularly Baltimore City politics, but we also have a candidate, a mayoral candidate in the House, and we're going to basically actively engage, have him discuss some things with us, tell us a little bit about himself, and then we're going to have a chance to ask some questions. So, I hope you all enjoy this segment of PK on politics and dealing with a political candidate in real time. And with that said, let's get it started. Terry.
How y'all doing tonight? Yeah, this is Truth Ministries. Tonight, I put my real name up here for political purposes. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I just want to let y'all know this is Truth up here. And I am now the campaign manager for Donald E. Scoggins, and he is running for mayoral candidate. Mayor of Baltimore City. Now, when I first let me tell y'all the story of how we actually met. Right at first, this is about 2020, I think, when I first originally started the Free People's Movement. What the Free People's Movement it's a group of independents, right, from Baltimore. We are all Baltimoreans, and we were coming together because we were tired of the corruption within our politics within our city. So we said we're going to come together and we're going to find our own candidate, right? So during the process of this, I was actually at a not at a city council meeting, but I made online comments. You see what I'm saying? Because in Baltimore, you can actually join in the city council meetings via the Wi-Fi. So I actually joined in one of the meetings that I actually was speaking about putting trades back into the school, and that's when Don he hit me up in an email, and ever since then, we started to kick it. First, he told me he was a Republican. And y'all know how I felt about Republicans. You know what I mean? As far as with Trump and everything, I was battling Republicans every single day. So I said, let me give him a shot. Let me hear what he's talking about. And the more me and him got to talking, the more me and him got to actually listening and talking about what was going on in Baltimore and the issues and how to solve the issues, the more I seen that me and him actually have the same, almost same exact ideas. You see what I'm saying? Which to me isn't has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. This man literally wants to fix Baltimore. You see what I'm saying? This is the reason why I'm backing him as as an activist in Baltimore, and a lot of people know me, and they know that I don't play about my city. So when I'm coming to you with a candidate, I just want y'all to know that I'm trying to bring the best candidate possible to the table. And I believe that Donald Scoggins is the best candidate in the race right now. But we're going to let him speak for himself. Don, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, you know much about my background. You want to mention my background, or what me do it so it's not too long and drawn out?
I would rather you go through it.
Okay, all right. I'll try to.
Because I want the people to get to know you. You know what I mean?
Okay, if I'm going too long, you know how to cut. Just tell me. Okay, just cut me
Don't
off.
worry.
Okay, let
We
me.
are free to talk black over here.
Okay, let me start off with maybe in my early days, like I was saying before before we gained live, is that I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, during the closing days of Jim Crow. My dad was an electrical contractor, and his father was the at one time the only black towel setter in the state of Oklahoma. And my father's brother, he worked on TVs. In those days they had tube TVs, and another brother worked with the two of them. So between my dad and his dad and my two uncles, the four of them, they all kind of worked together under the same roof, and they even had a little. They built a building in the area, and the company was called Scoggins Electric Company. And my dad, I saw what he had to go through because of Jim Crow era, he could not be a member of the union, but yet larger electric companies sent white journeyman electricians for him to train. Some of the smaller jobs that my dad was able to get, these younger white electricians were working with him, and they were being trained. So my dad, like I said, he couldn't be a member of the union, but he was always a permanent sub. I mean, he had work coming in, but he was always a sub to one of the larger companies, and that kind of burned him up because he used to have to, his whatever money he would make, quite a bit of it went to the other company. So anyway, I saw what he had to go through because of the way it was hard to get a SBA loan because not being a member of the union, you couldn't get bonding, and it was just on and on and on and on. So I saw what he went through, and that was during the late, middle, and late 50s. And my dad used to always say, make sure you never have to depend on the man for your income. And I never did, I never will forget that. He said, whatever you do, be in control of yourself, or be in control of your own money. Because he was going through hell himself with it. So, he constantly kind of preached that to me and my brother. Okay, fast forward. After we left, me and my brother, we moved. My mother and father were separated, so she was living in Philadelphia, and my brother and my dad was in Oklahoma. But anyway, we came to East in Philadelphia to live with my mother. But me and my brother, we were becoming teenage boys and stuff. So, and you know how it is, a woman trying to raise two boys, and my brother tended to be a little more, how should I put it, rank bunches than I was. So my granddad, my mother's father, got us to go to a military school, a boarding school in Virginia called St. Emil Military Academy, and that was a 4-year boarding school. So we were there for 4 years, and so from the time I was 13 till almost 18, I was at the boarding school, and I got, we got disciplined. Had to do things, everything that should be done for these young people today, we did back in those days. So anyway, I graduated from St. Emma, then I went to Hampton in architecture. And I got into architecture because I used to ask my father, I said, my dad used to say, oh, he said, you can be you can be an electrician too. And I said, well, Dad, I'm afraid I'm going to get shocked. I'm scared to be an electrician. He said, well, the next best thing is an architect, because I loved going with him when he was wiring the houses and things like that. So I got into architecture because he said that was a good thing to get into. And I loved drawing. I used to always love to draw pictures of houses and going to visit with him when he was working on houses. Anyway, I got a degree in architecture at Hampton. And like I said, when I was graduating, um, Martin Luther King got assassinated right around that time, but I had already started becoming more interested in community work, because when I was 19 years old in my sophomore year in Hampton, I went to Africa because that was in 1965. In Africa, many of the African countries were beginning to get their independence. They were colonized, but in the mid 60s, many of them were becoming independent. So there was this black minister who started an organization called Operations Crossroads Africa, and he came to Hampton to try to get some of the, in those days we were called Negroes. So he was trying to get some of the, black students to go to Africa during the summer, and I was able to do that. Had to raise some money and got some contributions from churches and other family members. So I was able to go to Africa, and when I was in Africa, that was a life altering experience, because before, when you mentioned going back in the day, when you talked about going to Africa, only people, they always thought about you going in the jungles, and the people, what they saw on TV, like on Tarzan, they thought all, Africans were wild and everything, but they weren't. And in Hampton, just about all the young men from Africa made the honors roll. They just stayed on the honor roll. So Africa really intrigued me. And at one time, I thought about going into the foreign service because I loved, I loved Africa so much. But then I said that would take me away from the family. So the next best thing, I said, well, I'm going to be an urban planner, because that satisfied my that satisfied my interest of being community minded. It satisfied my interest in being involved in houses, and it satisfied my interest being involved in investments because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So when I uh, graduated from Hampton, went to University of Pittsburgh, get my master's in urban regional planning, and because I was in ROTC, I had to go fulfill my military obligation. So I went to Vietnam. I volunteered to go to Vietnam because at the time I was reading where they had a unit over there that was working with the city of Da Nang that was reestablishing their city planning department that had become defunct during the war with the French back in the 50s. So I was able to get an assignment over there. I had to appeal to General William Westmoreland to get that assignment, but I got the assignment in Vietnam. So I worked in Vietnam working with the Foreign Service Office that was responsible for helping to reestablish that city planning office. And one of my duties over there was to come up with the arrangement. The former, since the war was being wound down, the barracks that U.S. troops were staying in, they weren't going to tear those down. They were going to leave them for the Vietnamese. So I was helping to come up with the disposition plan to turn those barracks over to the Vietnamese people, and they could use it for housing for their citizens. So that was interesting. Then I got discharged in '72. Came to D.C. as an urban planner. So it's really a long. I mean, I didn't realize it, but I have such a long story. And when I was in D.C., I was involved over in Anacostia area. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that area, but that was a sort of a deprived area of DC, and they had a lot of needs. Streets need to be paved, and houses need to be fixed up. So I got to, I enjoyed doing that because I like working with people. So I was able to get a street widened they've been trying to widen this street for 30 years, and I was able to get it done in almost 2 years. And I found out the reason why is because they didn't have anyone that was working with the city, because you have to lay on people to do what they're supposed to do. So that experience piqued my interest in getting involved in politics, because I found out that if you don't have the right political leaders doing certain things, you won't get anything done. So, and being that I was even a Republican back then, because back in the day, the Republicans, like I said, they were very business minded. And my grandfather on my mother's side, he was an HBCU president down at Virginia Union. And he told, as a matter of fact, Miss the young lady there, the moderator, he knew Mary McLeod Bethune, my grandfather did.
Nice.
So, but anyway, what I'm saying is that my granddad told me that if it wasn't for good white Republicans up north, a lot of the HBCUs wouldn't be established, because they needed money. A lot of the HBCUs were started by religious denominations like the Baptist Church and the Methodist Church and things like that, and they were able to get money to do these things from wealthy benefactors up north, and they tended to be Republican. They were moderate Republicans of that time. So that kind of got me into being interested in being a Republican. So any job I had, even when I was a real estate broker in DC, I was working in the community helping people buy houses who didn't think they could buy a house. I showed them how they could buy a house, and one thing led to the next. So that's how I got involved in politics. And I really enjoy it, because I like seeing people happy, and especially people who don't think they can get something. I like to show them how they can get something. And I really get a charge out of seeing somebody who doesn't think they can become a homeowner. So that's, and then I just kind of carried that on through with my work. And what got me in, well, I could tell you, it's another long story about how I got involved in Baltimore, but we can talk about that later. But if anyone wants to ask me any questions they can. So
Well, we do have a few additions to the panel. I'm going to introduce them first, Mr. Scoggins, before we move forward, and we definitely have some questions. But we also have Pseudo Killer Army official Omar Reed in the building, and Pseudo Killer Army Lieutenant Brass is in the building, which is probably one of those individuals that are actually in our group and in close contact who has of course, y'all had a little discussion before we went live, but definitely has experience and understands the political arena more than most. So I'm very interested in seeing definitely what questions um, either gentleman have, and for the chat. So if the chat is interested, excuse me, and engaging, Mr. Scoggins, mayoral candidate for Baltimore City, please put your questions in the chat, and I will do my best to
Yolanda, if you want to, you can post the link.
Okay, y'all okay with that?
Yeah, we okay
Okay,
with that.
I got
We
you.
want people to come
All
interact.
right,
You
all
know what I
right.
mean?
Well, y'all heard him. We posting the link, and I'm doing it right now, so y'all don't be scared. Go ahead and hit that link, get on the panel, and ask him your questions. But now, if you don't mind, is there anything that you wanted to add, Terry? Because if not, then I'm going right to um, Omar if he has a questions, and then Brass. I'm definitely going to let you have it. But Terry, anything else you wanted to add?
No, this definitely is about Don, and I want Don to get his personality across to the people, because I think once people get to know Don,
Mhm.
I think everything else falls in place, because this guy is really genuinely a good person. You know what I mean? So I want y'all to ask some of y'all questions, and y'all pick his brain, and y'all gonna see what I seen. You see what I'm saying? And then once y'all see what I seen, maybe y'all can help out and get him in office.
10-4. Omar, do you have any questions or any comments for Mr. Scoggins or what we're doing right now?
Juju, there's feedback.
I think that's on your end, Terry. I'm sorry.
I'm on mute.
I'll put on mute too. Let me see if I'm on mute.
Is it me?
Hello. Gone. That's
Hello?
you, Brad.
Hello? Oh, hey, how you doing? Sorry, it's honor to meet you. And I didn't want to get in the way. I just had one question about what you were saying earlier about the difference between Republicans in Black Wall Street versus Republicans today. I was just wondering what was one of the major differences between modern day Republicans and Republicans of that day.
Okay. The uh, the major, I would say, what attracted me to the Republican Party back in the, I would say back in the well, let me start off. In 1955, I was helping relatives in Tulsa, Oklahoma, get Dwight Eisenhower elected, and the reason why in that time they gravitated to Dwight Eisenhower was because that was right in the middle of segregated period, and Eisenhower sent the troops into Little Rock, Arkansas, to integrate that school, and they were campaigning for his reelection. And I was this little kid around 11 years old, helping them walk the streets, passing out literature and getting that. So that kind of got me started. But to answer your question, Omar, about the difference between the party back then and the way it is today, is that I think that the party really lost its way. It's kind of like doesn't even have any resemblance to what it used to be back, what attracted me to it in many other people. And a matter of fact, there are many, it's probably more people who left the party who and are now independents than are those who uh, who are actually Republican today. Because the Republican Party tend to be to me they tend to be somewhat extremists, and they're not the type that I would like to identify with, because I tend to be moderate, and I'm willing to work across the aisle if there's a good solution out there. I'm willing to work with other people and get something done versus just being obstructionist and don't get anything done. Because the the more you don't do, then problems fester and they get worse. So it's best to address it as soon as you can than to be letting something go for years and years and years, and because you're trying to get 100% of something. So to me, that's the biggest difference between the two parties, and you can see it. You can see it playing out today by the number of people who left, like Mitt Romney, for an example, and then there's Liz Cheney and Adam Zingerker from Illinois. There are many others who are out there. So that's the biggest difference. And some people ask me why don't I just be a Democrat? And to me, the Democratic Party is equally as dysfunctional. And I personally do not. I don't like their philosophy, because their philosophy depends on having to deliver government services. If you notice, they have to deliver government services, and they need a constituency that needs them. In order for them to stay in office, they need a constituency that looks upon them as somebody or some group that they need. And unfortunately, that seems to be the Black community, because we've become, to me, over the last almost 60 years, we've become a permanent underclass. If you look at everything, we need, it's program this and program for that, and it's permeated in such a way that it's hard to even get us to do things for our own selves, because we're so used to having the government to do some of these things. And it's just tragic the way the government policies has destroyed the Black family. That's just, that just really breaks my heart how that has happened. So, and in Baltimore, you have to register by party to vote. Either register Republican or Democrat, or either you declare yourself non-party affiliate. And if you're a non-party affiliate, you got so many hoops to go through to try to get on the ballot. You have to get 10% of the registered voters in the city to get on the ballot. And can you imagine, the city is about over 450, almost 500,000 people. That means I would have to try to get 50,000 signatures, and they have to be good signatures. So that's so onerous. But to get on the ballot as a Republican or a Democrat, all you have to do is be a resident of the city 1 year before the election and pay $150. And that's so it's almost like they're forcing you to be one or the other. And like I said, I can't be a Democrat because of what they've done to our community. I can't be that. And I tend to be very economic minded anyway, despite the problems of the GOP. I still have entrepreneurial and entrepreneurial type mindset, because I believe in economic development. Because when people have economics, a lot of the other ills that we are suffering, we don't really experience those.
Nice. Well, I will tell you, so far, the chat is loving it. They say you going in, Mr. Scoggins, for sure. But before I hand it to Brass, I do have one question from the audience, and they wanted me to ask you, what is your take on the attempt to impeach President Joe Biden?
Okay, if I don't go along with it, because number one, I look upon that as being a distraction, because Joe Biden they're trying to impeach him basically on maybe the activities or the involvement of his son. And I think they're really doing that as a means to be a distraction from what we should be trying to accomplish. Even when it comes to what they were trying to do to Donald Trump when he was president, I don't approve of certain things, but Hunter Biden is not the president. Joe Biden is the president. So they should, if they want to impeach someone, try to impeach Joe Biden, but you can't impeach Joe Biden based on what his son did. I think that's what they're trying to pin it on him, and they're trying to say that he was complicit some way in what the gains of his son. And I think, see, all this to me, and while we're going through all this, the ills and the troubles and the problems of the world are still going on and on and on. And usually, and I tend to be kind of, I would say one track when it comes to being community minded. I'm more of a community. I'm looking at what needs to be done in the community versus what's going on Capitol Hill.
Thank
So,
you for
so to answer your question, I'm not in favor of I'm not in favor of that. I think we should be getting more into what we need to do to help the people.
I concur.
I just wanted to point out that that was a Republican that said that, and he's been a Republican longer than half these Republicans that are messing up the Republican Party has been alive. So, just wanted to point that out. I'm going back on mute.
You're fine. So now I'm definitely going to pass the mic to Brass and let him do a little facilitating um as far as this program goes, and I'm sure he has some very thoughtful and in-depth questions because of his expertise. So, Brass, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience and get right into it?
Good evening. I am very excited. We talk about a lot of things, and thank you, Juju. We
You're
talk
welcome.
about a lot of things when it comes to the pseudo killers. And politics is literally right up my alley. It's the business that I own. It's my lifelong passion. So I'm honored to be on a panel with a person who graduated from Hampton University when it was an institute. This is this is somebody who, you've been in the DMV area. I mean, how many questions do I get before we get started?
Whatever you
Let's
want, but
start with one.
just maybe give me a time to let maybe the audience ask a question or two. But it you own the panel right now, Brass. It's all you. Okay, go
Okay,
in.
no problem. So I know that you've been in the DMV area since what, 62? So what, almost like 50 something years?
Since '72 when I came back from
72.
Vietnam. Yeah.
Okay. So, and thank you for your service.
Mhm.
So, um, what have you seen in that time that, as far as like a change from then to now, what would you say is the most disappointing uh, trend you've seen in that time, basically being from the DMV area or being entrenched in that area for the last 50 plus years? What is the trend you've seen that was the most disappointing?
I would say the most disappointing thing to me is that the parties themselves, Republicans and Democrats, they've become so intransient in terms of holding on to their particular power. When you look at it, when I look at people running for office, it seems like they're interested in permeating or maintaining the existence of the party, of the individual parties versus getting something done. And as a result, people who run for office in many cases are people who are more fixed on the party than they are fixed on actually working in the community. And that's the thing that's one thing that annoys me, or at least disturbs me. And another thing that disturbs me is the how politics has affected the Black community. We are not as unified as I feel we should be, because there are common, whether you're Republican or Democrat, there are common needs that we have that's not being addressed, and they're primarily dealing with education, dealing with economic development, and of course the crime. Now, when I was growing up, we had the trades in the school, and the trades was I would say that was a key or a passport to many individuals of being able to get employed, maybe start their own business, or be able to do something that can that can tie them over. That we don't have the trades in the school anymore. By and large, we do not have the trades in the school, and a lot of the young people that are out here waywardly, who are wayward and don't lack of direction, they don't have any kind of marketable skills. And I think that's a disappointment, because you would think, at least I would hope, that those that are representing our community would be advocating for that type of curriculum to be. But I hate to say this, but the unions, the teachers union, just about every union has a very powerful political action committee, and they contribute money to candidates, and they contribute money to candidates that represent their interests, not the interests of the, in the case of education, not the interests of the students, but the interests of the teachers versus the students. And I think you asked me about a disappointment. That is the biggest disappointment because, you know, in the 60s when many folks were advocating for blacks to have more political opportunities, I think many of those people are, but not many of them, all of them are pretty much are deceased now. But if they saw the conditions of our community today, they would turn over in their grave. You know, I know they would. They would be very disappointed because we've taken our eye off the prize, and the prize should be economics.
Perfect. I love to hear stuff like that because I know you were in Richmond, Virginia before doing planning. I know your master's is you have a master's in urban.
Urban and regional planning, right?
Where's it?
Now,
What
have you
school was that from?
University of Pittsburgh?
Okay. Okay.
Now, have you're in Richmond, correct?
No. I'm in
Oh,
New Jersey.
oh, oh.
My daughter is in Newport News,
Mhm,
and she did some summer work in Richmond, Virginia. That's how she
mhm,
was familiar with you in regards to your housing
mhm,
exploits. That's why when they did the show, they said you were running for mayor. I thought it was for Richmond, Virginia,
mhm,
but then
mhm.
when you said you were in Baltimore, and the only thing I could think of was, if I'm not mistaken, I know you're an Alpha man. Alpha Phi Alpha is headquartered in Baltimore,
Baltimore.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
that was another story. I could, if you have
No,
about
go
two,
ahead.
two
By all
minutes.
means, I was trying to
Okay,
see the
here's
connection
here.
for Baltimore.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me tell you how all that happened. Well, before I do that, right quick, you heard of Virginia Union, correct?
Yes, sir.
My granddad was president of Virginia Union.
Not surprised.
Uh,
I'm
and
not surprised.
he was an alpha also.
Okay.
But let me tell you how the Baltimore thing came about. Um, let's see. My mother passed in 2021. She was at 108, 102, and she was 102 years old when she passed in 2021. 6 years before that, for 6 years prior to her passing, I was pretty much her primary caregiver. So I really didn't have. I had retired from the federal government mainly to deal with her or to help her. So during that period of time from 2014 till the time she passed, I was somewhat housebound. I mean, not staying in the house, but I mean, I really couldn't be engaged in the community type things that I normally would like to do. So, so, so 7 years was pretty much dedicated to that. But when she passed, quite frankly, I was feeling not fulfilled. I didn't have anything to do, and I was kind of bored living in the suburbs and all like that. So I thought about it in 2015 when they had the Freddie Gray situation in Baltimore. I did go over there for that during that time because people, they were trying to have a meeting. You know how usually when something happens in the black community, they're always having a meeting about something. So I went over there, and the meeting really didn't convene because some of the participants, pastors, didn't show up, so they really didn't have a meeting. But I did get a chance to meet a lot of the young people in the street over there at St. Peter Claver Church. That's where they were going to have the meeting at. And so after that, I came back, and then while I was on the way driving back home to Virginia, I said to myself, Baltimore needs some help. And I was trying to figure out a way how I could be involved. And then the light bulb went off. Alpha Phi Alpha, they're headquartered in Baltimore, right there, 2313 St. Paul Street. So I got in touch with the executive director of Alpha, and we had a nice chat. And I was telling him what I think we should try to do. We should probably, because Alpha has resources, and I said we should probably try to acquire some of those houses, do something, maybe buy 5 or 6 of them, fix them up, resell them, just keep turning it over like that. So I met with several alphas. We were trying to figure out what we were going to do in that regard. And I hate to tell you this, but alphas tend to be kind of bureaucratic, and a little bit on the bougie side, I must admit. I mean, I'm not, I'll tell them that even too. So I think Baltimore was a little bit too rough for them, quite frankly. And so that idea didn't go anyplace. But I had become interested in Baltimore myself after spending about 5 or 6 months driving around the city, looking at boarded up houses and stuff. And since housing is my background and I love houses, I was in, architecture and all like that. And I was a landlord. I had bought some property in DC. So I said, well, maybe I should do this, getting involved myself. And so I started poking around, asking people about these boarded up houses. And they said, politics in Baltimore is corrupt. You can't do this, you can't do that. And the politicians and this, and, and then some of the people who had nonprofits, they would tell me how hard it is to deal with the city and this. So I tend to be a person who's, I wouldn't use the word glutton for punishment, but I'm always things that seem to be hard. I'm always get involved in the hard stuff. Anything that's easy to me is not a challenge. So when I heard about how Baltimore is, I started talking to people in the street and everything. They said, well, why don't you run for mayor? People say, why don't you run for mayor? I said, what? Me run for mayor? And then I started thinking about it. Then I started looking at who the current people were in office and some of the other elected officials. And I said, well, heck, I could do just as much as they, it wasn't like they were all that great and everything. And so I said, well, I'm sure my background can match up with their background. So I gave it some, so then I said, I'll go ahead and do it. And even though I'm a Republican, that didn't deter me because people say, well, in Baltimore, they, Democrats, they Democratic Party this and Democratic Party that, everything is Democrats. I said, well, I mean, that didn't deter me because I said, well, I'm a Republican and I'm a different type of Republican. Maybe it'll resonate some kind of way. So then one thing led to the next, and then Terry told you how we met and everything. So I've been pretty much involved since then. But it was kind of off and on whether I was going to do it or not. But to qualify, you have to be a resident of the city 12 months before the next election. So that meant in this past November, I had to have established residency in Baltimore, legal residency. So I did that. And one thing I'll tell you all, and this is something that I'll probably tell everyone that I run into, I was really on the fence until something happened in October. I think it was October. Could have been September, but I think it was October. I was in the community. I met one older guy, and I'm the type of person I love to meet people. I'm always stretching my hand out and say, hey, how you doing? I'm Don Scoggins, such and such, I'm running for me, that type of thing. And this older black guy, this older black guy, this is what he told me. I'm not shaking your hand. You look like one of them niggas the white man sent, That's what he told me,
I
Wow.
love it.
And when he
Wow.
and when he told me that, you know what I said to myself? I'm running. I'm not going to be bullied by that. As old as I am, no one has ever called me a nigger, maybe behind my back, but I've never been called that in front of my face before. And I thought about it and I said, that is the problem in Baltimore. You have a lot of people with that kind of mentality that don't want to see anything done in the city. And the kids are the ones that's suffering. The older folks, their life is pretty much set, either they're not, you know, people 50 and above or so, they're, I mean, what's going to happen has already happened. But I mean, these young kids, the ones that are not being educated, the ones who are growing, who are living in squalor and blighted situations, they are the ones that I'm really feel sorry for, and they are the future of our race. So if we don't do something, then, and we're becoming more and more, I don't know how it is in New York and Newark, or I mean, up in New Jersey, and how it is in Florida. But the way I look at the Black community is that we are becoming more and more marginalized because we've almost become a permanent underclass. We've become and all these things. And then I, because I think a lot. I love to, when I'm driving along, I'm always thinking about something. And I said, here I am. I got a degree in architecture. I got a master's in urban regional planning. Where am I going to practice it at? How am I going to take advantage of their education. Then I thought about some of my peers who are lawyers and doctors and everything. We can't practice our craft in our own community because it's so dysfunctional and everything. So I'm saying that many of us are spending big money to get educated, and then once you get educated, or once you get these credentials and everything, where are you going to utilize them at? And I don't want to appear racist in anything, but
Right.
I don't feel that whatever I can contribute, I don't feel comfortable making it everything good for the white folks, if you know what I mean. I mean,
Yes, sir.
you know what I mean? I'm trying. I'm trying to articulate in such a way that it comes across right. But I'm just saying that I don't think they need me. I think my people need me more than the other folks need me. And so that's basic. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? I mean,
I understand exactly what you're saying.
I mean, I'm out here in the suburbs. I mean, for an example, in Virginia, I would go to a lot of community meetings, and they're talking about walking trails or maybe the parks. We need more parks, and either they're this sort of nice things you should be concerned about. And then when I go to Baltimore and hear all the shooting and killing and the boarded up houses and stuff, and I say I'm over here, so I don't, it's something not right there, and then I don't feel good about it. I say, well, I don't feel like I'm contributing what I should have been, what I was trained to contribute back in Hampton and all. I mean, this is what we're supposed to be doing. Do you understand? Kind of understand what
Because you're like,
I'm not saying it right, but do you understand what I'm saying?
I completely understand.
you are saying it.
They're oblivious to the actual issues. Their issues pale in comparison to the issues that matter to us. They're talking about dog trails and dog parks and things like that, where we have poverty, vacant homes, especially in Baltimore.
I want to give y'all an example of this. I want to give y'all a direct example of what we're talking about. One of the main concerns in Baltimore, and there's a lot of citizens that have this concern. They are like talking about the potholes, the 311 calls that's not getting answered, trash being in certain places, people dumping tires, which is definitely a problem. Don't get it. I'm not saying that that's not a problem. But on my side of town, our problem is prostitution, drug addicts. Like today, we had a woman. My mother actually had a problem. It was a woman standing in the middle of the street for at least an hour, and she was just standing there. To where as though my mother was wondering what was like. She's standing there so long and not moving. To where as though she called the ambulance for. Like maybe something like she has to be something going on mentally. But those are the problems that we have on my side of town. Now you have another side of town that their biggest concern might be the pothole. You know what I mean? But these are the communities that have been I'm gonna just say gentrified. They gentrified a large portion of Baltimore City. And what they are doing is, and I don't think it's really fair. What they're doing is, instead of solving the problem that we have within our community, they are displacing the problem. They're putting the problem on the counties. And what's happening is the counties in Maryland are now jumping, like they're going all the way the wrong direction. And it's because of the displacement of the people that are unhealed. I'm going to say unhealed, because a lot of people in our city are really dealing with PTSD. And because they're living in these environments that these people that talk about these environments wouldn't even go to without a gun. But they wonder why the kids in these communities carry guns, but they wouldn't go there without a gun themselves. You know what I mean? So this is the situation that we are in Baltimore. And what we want to do is actually solve these situations instead of displacing them. Which the current administration is actually doing.
Say that again, Terry. Say that one more time.
I said we want to cure the cancer.
Yeah.
Instead of letting the cancer spread into other areas just by mistreating it and just letting it survive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't want to be displaced out of Baltimore. We do not want the demographics of Baltimore City to change. And in one community council meeting, I actually spoke up and said that. I actually told them it was the taxpayer night. Taxpayer night. I was on one of the online callings. I do the online thing a lot of times when I can't make it in person.
That's fine. You're still making it.
Yeah. So what I told them was, we did not put y'all in office, because I was in y'all know I was in Mexico for 3 years.
Right.
I went to Mexico in 2020, came back in 2023, and when I came back, I look at the city, and there's certain parts of the city that are beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I love the redevelopment that they did. It's like a beautiful place to live. But it's none of my people still there. It's no what we call legacy Baltimoreans. What a legacy Baltimorean is somebody that has lived in Baltimore 15 plus years.
Right.
You don't have any legacy Baltimoreans left in that community. That's because they gentrified it. And what gentrification does is displace the community, and they displace the community into the counties, and they're wondering, and even though I know they know why, but they're making, like with the news and the media, they're using the media to make it seem like they don't understand the problem, but they understand the problem just perfectly. They're displacing community so they can make a profit off the community. Because y'all remember, like I actually made a video about it. Y'all remember at Boys in the Hood, right? When Furious went in front of the billboard and he spoke to everybody about gentrification.
Yes.
And told everybody that they bring down the property value in your community, so eventually they can sell it at a high value.
Yeah.
But what people don't understand is this is a 30 or 40-year plan. This is not something that happens overnight. So what they did was they actually implemented a plan 30 years ago. The Democratic Party, who was in control of Baltimore, Schaefer. And at this point in time in history, that those people that came after him just followed along with his script. And now they're ready to sell. They started deteriorating the community, or underfunding, in what's it called? I'm trying to think of the exact word. Deferred. They deferred the money to other communities, which is why downtown Baltimore and East Baltimore around Johns Hopkins and Patterson Park is so beautiful. And while on my side of town we got prostitution that they are talking about, as of this morning, I seen a report that they're trying to make prostitution legal, and that's only because it's not in their community. Right. If they seen the actual problems, I know a lot of people might think, oh, these people, let that people just do it. No, it's not happening in your community. If it was happening out front your house, you would definitely have a problem with it. You see what I'm saying? And it is actually happening in front of my house.
And here's something I want to add to what you said, Terry, is that the big issue I have is that the problems, especially within our community, is we need to do things to change, have what I call behavioral changes. We have to do things that's going to change the behavior, and you can't do that without sufficient and adequate education. And these young, and not just the kids, but the parents need to be educated, because a lot of these parents are offsprings of parents who didn't raise them right, you know. Right. So we are going into 3 generations of dysfunction within our community, especially with the breakup of the Black family. And what gets me is that we're not sufficiently trying to change the educational system. They keep talking about how bad education is here, but they don't change the curriculum to address that type of thing.
I want to put a few points in here, and then I want to introduce, the man himself in a minute. But first of all, Mr. Scoggins, I mean, I got respect for the Black and Gold. So, them alpha mans are number one. I don't care how sedity they are.
Yeah, well.
And my aunt is an AKA, so that's
okay.
That's kind of in the family. But what we're speaking about here, and I hope that the chat and people that are listening understand that this is somewhat a microcosm of the macro, right?
Sure.
So what Mr. Scoggins is speaking about, and what we're having a discussion about concerning Baltimore City, is actually taking place in lots of predominantly African American Black cities, across the United States.
Mm.
Particularly Miami is going through the same thing of this type of gentrification or whatnot. Um, that's my second point. And the third point I want to make is, though we do have some more outstanding problems in our quote unquote community, let's not discount that. Um, our environment is important, and there's been
Mhm.
studies on this. Like, aesthetically pleasing environments are
Mhm.
very important. And
Mhm.
and also, some research has shown that people tend to act differently when they're in
You're
an
right.
environment that they like, that looks
You're right.
good, because they
You're absolutely
care
correct.
about it more.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, even though
Mhm.
we have those other issues, and I
Mhm.
and I'm not going to say that it's not an issue. I think that what happens in our community is just a little bit more overt, like it's right there in your face,
Mhm.
and other
Mhm.
communities can tend
Mhm.
to hide it a
Mhm.
little better, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
but those are some things that I think is important for everybody. Like, don't trash them trying to build a nature trail, because that might be the start to actually changing what that community looks like.
Mhm.
And when you change what that community looks like, people tend to start acting accordingly also, you know.
What I meant to say, I guess I didn't wasn't too clear about it, was that it would be good to get to the point where we can talk about trails and things like that.
Right, it would be. You're right, you're right, you're
But
right.
when you have issues in your community, like we have in Baltimore in inner city, where you got
Mhm.
a lot of blight and everything. And see, what I've noticed over the years is that sometimes we put more emphasis in bricks and mortar than we do in human beings, because they're the ones that cause a lot of the problem.
Yeah.
These young men and young women, that are wayward and not going to school, or maybe
Yeah.
those that are doing the shootings and the this and the that. A lot of it's because of lack of poor education,
Hmm.
and their parents are not educated and everything. So we need to address that. And at least we can do both things. We can improve them as a being, and we can also improve the
Hmm.
uh, physical sites, because I love beautiful things. That's
Yeah.
why I got into that's why I got into architecture and
Yeah.
urban regional planning. I mean, I like seeing things nice, but I found out that if you concentrate on doing things, making nice, pretty surroundings and everything, and then the people are still in the uproar, because the way we are now in our community, the audience, you all, I'll say this to you, you young people here. It wasn't like this all the time. It wasn't like this back in the 40s and 50s. We could go up and down our streets in our segregated community and trade in businesses. You got restaurants, you had grocery stores, five and down. We had everything that you would want right in our segregated community, and we weren't afraid someone, your mother or father send you to go. When I say mother and father today, they don't say it's just mother, but if you went out to go to the grocery store, they wouldn't have to worry whether you're going to be coming back or not. See,
Right.
so these are things we need to address also, and I don't see where our public officials are are looking at that.
Right. And I'm gonna finish my point, and then I'm gonna get the man himself in here. The reason why I mentioned that, because when I talked about Miami in particular, and there's other places in Florida, because I can speak for Florida. We have to start implementing also in our platforms, discussing things like environmental racism, because when we talked about gentrification, that is part of it. You get what I'm saying? Like, there may be other reasons, but some of the reasons, particularly in Miami, it's the environmental racism, right? Because they know that certain things are happening where the rich and elite are, so they're trying to move it. I mean, literally, to higher ground before it ends up in the ocean.
This was no, 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 Juju. You got to understand gentrification. This happened back in the 30s. All the communities right now, you could look at them right now. Every community that is deteriorating right now got falling, like vacant homes everywhere, churches everywhere, liquor stores everywhere. These are the communities that they had planned to gentrify in the 70s. and it's just come to fruition now. It's like planting a tree. They planted a tree back in the 70s called gentrification, and it's just now bearing fruit.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but like in Miami, I don't see that actually. Like, I understand that their plan is longer, right? They'd be on a 40, 50-year plan, and we always trying to play catch up. I get that, but I can tell you, ain't no way somebody's gonna spend like a multi-million dollar, high rise, and then 20 years from now, like 5 feet of it is gonna be underwater. Like, I don't think they plan for that. You get what I'm saying? And I'm saying there's just more than one way. There's more than one variable that plays into the gentrification. Is what I was speaking of, and I was just speaking on
Definitely.
that
I agree. I agree with you.
particular, situation. But
I agree
before
with
we go any further, I want to introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, the guy killer himself. Well, for this show, Robert West, ladies and gentlemen.
Huh. And I'm not ashamed of my name.
I know that's right. I'm
What
not
I
even.
would like, what I would like to do is just say, how you doing, brother Donald, Mayoral candidate? How you feeling today, brother? Welcome to the Pseudo Killers.
Thank you.
A quick question for you. I was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh, where? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Spent 35 years of my life there. Almost lost my life twice to gun violence and drugs. Been in every rehab in Baltimore, Maryland. So my question to you would be, what are your plans to actually curb or reduce the drug trade and get help for the individuals that are strung out on drugs? Do you have any plans towards fixing that?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me just say this. I think it's going to be a multi-facet thing that has to be done. I think you're going to have to address the current addiction that they have, and at the same time, especially with the younger group, have a big, very aggressive educational uh, plan so that they do not become addicts in the first place. If we can do that, we need to show them that they can be something else beside an addict. And I think that from what I heard and what I've seen is that many people become addicts when they lose hope. They feel that they don't have any hope, and I guess that's why they resort to drugs and everything. And I'll say this: I'm not gonna, I'm not shameful of saying this, but I've never even taken a drug. I've never engaged in drug activity, and I think that if people
Illegal drugs or legal?
either, I mean, the only drug maybe aspirin and things like that, I guess. But I
Okay.
mean, as far as the things like
Alcohol.
alcohol and
Okay.
what is it, weed and everything, weed and
You say weed and everything. All right, I
yeah.
got
I
you.
mean, I'm not. I'm just saying that I think
That's a good thing.
that we need to. I just think we need to have more mentors. And when I mentioned something about the alphas being kind of what is it, bougie and all like that, and this is what has happened too. When as our community integrated, those that could be good role models in terms of their achievements and things like that, they moved out into the counties, and they moved elsewhere, which I don't blame them for moving, especially if the school systems were deteriorating. I can't say they have to stay in the city just to do that, but I do think that we need to concentrate on education. And if you concentrate on education, and education that the kids that will interest them, you can't take a kid that doesn't have any hope and try to teach them what is it, geometry and trigonometry and all these complicated subjects as if they were going to be going to STEM in courses like that. We need to get them where they are, where they happen to be, and do something that will make them be able to be successful where they are, like in the trades and everything, or maybe get involved in dealing with the chip manufacturing and things that you don't need a college education. Make sure that they're prepared to engage in those types of activities, and just have a good counseling. Just maybe those people that are addicted and everything. I mean, I hate to say it this, but some of them you just can't. I mean, what I mean, you can't spend $1 million on one person to try to get them not be addicted. That's why I say we just have to. Uh, when I talk to some of the young people, they say they don't have anything to do. They close all the rec centers, so they don't have anything to do beside being out front or being standing around and being, idle and things like that. So we can get these rec centers open and maybe get them engaged in activities. Because when I was coming up, we always had something to do during the summer, something that was exciting, even if we took them on trips and things. But we just need to do something to get them out of that surroundings.
Yeah, can I piggyback off of Don real quick?
No, don't piggyback. Don't piggyback. Don't piggyback. Let me. I'm not finished yet. Can I? Can I?
Hey, go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead. Do your thing, bro.
yeah. I just want to hear a lot of what Don has to say.
But you
First of
can
all, I'm
help.
curious.
But you know what? You can help me too. See, people. I mean, I'm open to listening to people who have experience in that type of thing and what they feel would help them. Because I can't. I don't want to sound like I'm dictating what people should do, because many times people who've experienced certain things
Right.
firsthand,
Mhm.
they can come up with solutions that we need to advocate that will help the situation. You see what I mean? And you can
Yeah,
help me, and I can help you, or vice versa.
yeah, Don. That was me saying that.
Yeah, that was him. Let
What
me
I would
finish.
all I'm gonna
Let me
do
finish.
is all I wanted to do was just elaborate on the plans that you have set out for Baltimore City. But that's all. I mean, I'm gonna let on finish.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me
let me
let
get in
on
just a
finish
little bit.
talking. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the key element. First of all, yeah, I grew up with the rec centers being open. I learned how to play chess there, learned how to play football, baseball. So I thought that was an integral part. And you definitely have to start with the rec centers first. And then it's the education second. Most kids that are in juvenile, right? 80% of them are illiterate. So the literacy rate has to rise in those things. So to hear you say education, that's absolutely where the actual starting point. You get them while they're young, and so I think that's really I'm rocking with you with getting the rec centers together and getting that education together. I think that is the plan, because once you get addicted, then that's another whole conversation. So yes, it's education, and I would like to also say shout out to Dr. Oya Mayat. We actually have a program, Conscious Ingenuity, in Baltimore, Maryland, and we're going to the schools actually promoting STEM, right? So maybe I'll get in contact with you, and the brother know how to get you in contact with it, right? And because yes, that's part of our thing here. We promote STEM in education, and I think that's actually the source of our problems. Not being
Mhm,
educated, specifically being scientifically literate, which would actually help you determine whether you
mhm,
should vote for a Democrat or Republican, and
mhm.
what would be the reasons why you would do so. So I
Right.
just wanted to add it in, and yeah, I appreciate you coming through to the platform, brother.
Well, let me say this, and let me add this. When you say a Democrat or a Republican, I'll tell you what has sort of disturbed me within the last maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years is that there have been some people who are Democrat. Just having that D beside their name gets them over.
Right.
And a person, I would say, like me, who I'm not, like I said, I'm a moderate. I'm not an extremist, but I would be viewed as one just because I have an R beside my name, without people even taking the time to talk to me and find out what I would advocate. And if it was up to me, all local elections would be nonpartisan. I mean, I really think the party system works against us, because we have to be hidebound to whatever our identity is so hidebound to what people think of those parties, so that they you're almost at a disadvantage even before you get into the game. You see what I mean? So I would love for local elections to be nonpartisan. I don't need to know if you're a Republican or Democrat. To me, it doesn't matter, as long as you got the right solutions and you willing to work and get things done. That's what I like about. That's what I'm all about.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But there's a stigma attached to being a Republican. So I know you got a long fight there,
Mhm.
and 35 years in Baltimore was under Democratic regime.
No,
And,
more than 35 years, since 1963.
well, I'm talking. Well, I was born in 1967. Before my
Oh,
before my time.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I see what
you never seen a Republican in Baltimore.
Yeah,
I
that
see
was
what you
actually
mean.
my point there, and I'm saying I know
Mhm.
you have a hurdle to get over with, right? That's why I
Mhm.
appreciate.
Now,
We have
are
a
you
very
in Baltimore? Are you in Baltimore now?
no, sir. I got up out of there because that's not a great place to raise kids. You see what I'm saying?
I don't. I understand you 100%. But if you have any contacts in Baltimore, you can kind of let them know that I'm a different animal.
No, I
Um,
told you I'm gonna get you in
right.
contact
Okay.
with Dr. Oya Mayat.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scientific
Mm-hmm.
literacy program there,
Mm-hmm.
Trust
and I
me, I
think
already got
I want you to
plans
go on a
to
show.
get on her
Huh?
show. I
Okay.
got
Oh,
plans to get on Dr. Mayat's show. So
well,
Well,
let me
yeah,
say this.
we're gonna go there next.
Okay, let me say this going back to the Democratic versus Republican thing, and that is what gets me, or I already said what gets me, but also what gets me is that there's some Democrats who are up to no good and they choose to run as a Democrat because they know that they can easily get in and they can just skate in, see where they can just skate through without hardly any effort because they got that D beside their name. And to me it's a stick. To me Democrats are, because I watch people, I look up people and see what the issues are and what they've done and where they've been, and a lot of these people are just party hacks, you know what I mean? They don't have any kind of subject matter expertise or anything. It's just that they are just out there to keep the Democratic Party in office, and they could care less whether anything gets accomplished. And if what I'm saying is not true, then just look at the situation of Baltimore is in right now. Mm, so
Good, Terry.
Or brass.
Yeah, where's Brass at? Did Brass have a conversation yet?
Oh
That's
yeah, we had
that's
you're in the middle of my conversation. I got a bunch of questions from
Oh,
this.
let me get okay. No, let me get out. This is what you do. Let me get out of this. Go ahead, man. I just wanted to. Anyway, brother, I wish you good luck, and I'm gonna actually see put some study in to actually understand, look at your record of what you're doing. But I like the fact that you focused on educating young people, and I think that will go a long way into solving the issues of Baltimore, Maryland, brother. Thanks a lot.
You're muted, Mr. Scoggins.
While
yeah,
was a
yeah.
break,
Make sure Terry. Make sure you
Juju.
have his information.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that's trust me, I got his information. I got it. I got everything you need for him. But Juju, can you post his contact info right now? Our website is getting worked on. We're having a professional build our website. So
Let's
Put
give him
it
the
in the
phone number.
chat.
it's
That's
not
good.
up yet. Yeah, so y'all can actually follow Donald Scoggins on Facebook. If anybody has Facebook, follow him on Donald E. Scoggins for mayor. It'll pop right up.
I'll find it and I'll post it.
Yeah, if you can post it in the chat for him. Also, yo, this is a great conversation. We definitely need to have this conversation. I'm glad we are moving this forward. And I hope other cities, because we about to lay the blueprint for
Mhm,
for what's about to be the necessity for the African American community.
mhm, mhm,
First, the first thing is y'all need to start going to your community association meetings and
mhm,
actually participating in your that's the most closest to you. It's
You
your
mean
community association meeting.
city
That's
council meetings, what we call them.
exactly. You got
Yeah.
to go to them first because that's when you get the speed bumps. A lot of people don't understand why they got speed bumps out front of their house. You got
Right.
speed bumps out front of your house because if you didn't want them, you could have went to the meeting and voted against it, but you never went to the meeting.
That's
And
right.
we're not participating in our own communities. You see what I'm saying? Decisions, and they are making major decisions. A lot of people complain about the bike lanes in Baltimore. The bike lanes is the same way. These are community decisions that are being made because other people are not coming to these meetings. You need to find out when your community has meetings and actually show up to these meetings. That's the first step. The second step is actually stop being on the sideline. Start making decisions in your community. Start making things happen in your community. That just simply participate. You know what I mean? That's one of the main steps. But Don has a lot of things that he wants to do with Baltimore, especially with the trades. especially with the trades and putting them back into schools. And it's that right there, like Aunt said, with as far as education, that's like one of the main factors. That's one of the main factors to defeating the crime problem in Baltimore, is defeating the poverty problem in Baltimore. Because we have a major poverty problem. This is why the people out here doing what they're doing. They're doing what they're doing because, first off, you got to understand one layer of thing. The parents, they are going to work, working their asses off for their children to supply every bill, make sure every bill is paid. But come the end of the week, their check is expended. You see what I'm saying? They're borrowing from people at this point at the end of the week because they don't have any money left because of bills and other situations. So you have the kids. The kids want, they still, like everybody else, want things. So they try to find other ways to get money. And this is the thing. We need to find solutions for our youth to be able to support themselves if that's what they want to do. So one of the things that me and Don was talking about is actually putting the trades back in school and having a summer work program with these 13,900 vacant homes. Have them go up in here and actually have a work study program to where as though they're actually learning and actually getting paid to learn these trades. And while fixing up the vacant home problem. So now we curing two birds with one stone. When these kids graduate, we want the kids to graduate with certifications to where as though if they do not go to college, they have something to fall back on. They would not just be going back to the streets. And this is what we're trying to do with Baltimore City. And we just need people to come out and vote. That's all we need. That's all we need. We're not asking for money. Trust me, we ain't even getting donations right now. Nobody has supported us yet. We doing this on our own ticket.
Nice.
And another thing,
and what I'm telling you is, we're going to continue to do it. We're going to continue to do everything we're doing, even if we lose. But guess what? We first off, let me tell you what we already have done. Brandon Scott just came out with a $3 billion plan to fix up the vacant homes. That's because one of the videos that we're running on. We posted a video that showed all the mayors of the past, and in the background is a whole bunch of vacant homes, and none of the vacant homes has changed condition since the time they have been in office. Wow. Now Brandon Scott wants to do something about it, but his bill is not backed on nothing. It's backed on a bunch of promises, like they always do. They're putting something in front of you so you can smile at it, but once they get in office, nothing will happen because we already know Maryland does not have the money to do it. We already are facing a deficit next year, a $1 billion deficit next year. 1.5, I think it is. I forget the exact number.
Yeah, 1.
But it's somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my thing is, how are it's a dog and pony show that they trying to do again. And this campaign, we not doing that. We're not trying to do it. We're trying to actually make actual changes. We have plans. If you listen to other candidates, and I'm just saying other candidates, if you listen to their interviews and listen to the things they are saying, they do not have a plan. You have certain candidates that are holding town halls to find out a plan. They want the community to tell them what to do. We have plans for this. You see what I'm saying? We had like we really want to do things. If y'all know me, y'all know I have thought this thing out for a long time.
I think Mr. Scoggins was wanting to say something.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to spill.
Yeah, you not preaching, but I ain't mad at you.
I thought he was running for a minute.
I'm just passionate about my city, bro. I'm sorry.
Right. I ain't mad at it, but I'm a joke about it.
Yeah, what I wanted to tag on, what Terry was saying is that the voting practice in Baltimore is very nil. Also, I think it's only what 20% of the people vote. It's not, and see, they consider the primary basically as almost like the general election. So whoever wins the Democratic primary, technically, I guess that's tantamount to being the general election. So people don't even hardly come out in the general election because they figure in the primary that's who it is. That may be good in our case, but what I will say is that our people, to me, racism is not the problem. Almost, it's apathy. I think apathy. Of course, racism exists, but I think apathy is almost worse than racism, because the apathy is something that we have to work on ourselves. And if we don't work on it, then we can't expect other people to do what we want to have done. And actually, whoever may be our so-called enemy, they like for us being apathetic. And you got some of these neighborhood or some of these community charlatans and everything who work in tandem with these people who want us to stay ignorant and poor. So
Yes, indeed. I want to make one point before I introduce. It's part of the Pseudo Killer Army who just hit the stage and probably have some very interesting questions. And we also, I know Brass is he burning because he
Chomping at the bit. Chomping at the bit. But go ahead. I digress.
I gotta hurry up and get back to Brass. But and this is something that I've always been advocating in this community and in my own community, because I've done community activism. Like, we have a Black mayor in Daytona Beach. I know him personally, like I can message him and it's all good. So not to toot my horn, but that just shows like that's participation in, city council meetings and whatnot, and just being actively engaged and involved in your community. Start where you stand, pretty much. But to be engaged in political activism locally is so important for us as African Americans across the country. Like, we no longer have we don't have time to be complacent anymore, and yes, these things aren't going to be, exciting, right? It's no rah-rah, but this is serious stuff, and this dictates our lives. And when is that going to, take precedence? When is that going to take center stage over the drama and the other stuff that we make time for, right? So I just had to say that, like, let's get actively involved and actively engage in our local political stage. City council meetings, that's public knowledge, right? You can Google it. They're going to give you the times. They can't hide it from you. So yeah, let's get on it. But I wanted to introduce Joel. He's part of the Pseudo Killer Army, and give him an opportunity to ask a question. And then Brass, I promise I'm giving it back to you. But Joel, this is Mr. Scoggins, and go ahead.
Mr. Scoggins, how you doing there, sir? I feel like I know you're on mute. You're on mute. I feel like I know a little bit about you.
I keep putting it on mute. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. I took a little time to listen to a couple of your interviews, read a little bit of your bio. You're a pretty interesting guy. I like what I've been reading so far. I like what I've been hearing. You said one word that really struck me, and really like raised my eyebrows. Got my antennas going. You said empathy, man. You need empathy. I said, wow. When the last time you hear a politician say that? So that's kudos in my book already. Yeah, I'm a long-time Baltimorean too. Born and raised, 1969. I've been here forever.
We can hear it in your voice, bro. I was sitting here about this, like, literally, we can hear it in your voice. You ain't even had to say
Baltimorean, ladies and gentlemen, for those who don't understand.
I didn't even say dog. I didn't even say dog yet, man.
Go ahead. I'm just messing.
Right.
It's a fly sweatshirt you got on, though. It's fly. It's fly.
Shameless plug. All right, so look, Don, there's a lot of intricate parts moving in Baltimore. One of the things that I think that really affects a lot of key areas is financing, right? How do you propose the deal? Okay, so just let me say this. So you spoke about the boarded up houses. I thought that was excellent. And I actually know one of the guys that's like working on those contracts and rehabbing those homes and getting them back out there for people to buy them. And I think that's a great plan. I think it's going to be a long, drawn out plan, right? So I think they're taking that route because of the financing, like trying to get people to come in and invest and put money in there, and without without a lot of people that's gainfully employed, a lot of times you don't have like the tax revenue and just the giving from just parents in general to the schools, right? And so a lot of Baltimore City public schools suffer. Some of them don't have AC in the summer. For the few months, a couple of days they're in there summer school, and then they don't have heat in the winter. So I don't know if I don't know how you would answer this question. I don't know if you've looked at an actual Baltimore budget, but what are some things you think you would do in order to get financing for things like that? Like how do you draw in so they pay a lot of attention to the inner harbor, right? Tourists come, right? But when you think about like you move away from there, go a couple of blocks up and get into the actual inner city, like how do you get the funding to support these schools and these neighborhoods?
Okay, let me tell you what my approach would be. I would not look just in Baltimore for funding. I've talked to some developers that I know because I've been involved in development. You said you read my background, so you've seen it. I've been involved in some of those things. There's money to be gotten, but you talk to some of the money sources, they tell me, and I understand that they said that they wouldn't get involved in doing something in Baltimore because they say the politicians, they steal too much money. So you have people who don't have the faith in the leadership there that the money is going to be spent the way it should be spent. If you look at a lot of these nonprofit organizations, they are de facto patronage type operations where favorite people can get nonprofit money for this and for that, and you can't see what's actually being done with. I would go in with a fine-tooth comb and comb and scrub some of that. I'm pretty sure we can probably find at least $10 or $15 million that's being ill spent and put that together. And what I would do also, and maybe if since you're in Baltimore, you can probably help with this. We have some community charlatans, and we were talking about this earlier about gentrification. People are free. People is nowhere. I'm going to be very extremely honest about it. It's nowhere in the world that we can support what we want to do in Baltimore without having people coming in with resources. And that don't necessarily have to be all white people. There are black people who I know live out in the county too. They would love to come back in. Young people that are paying maybe 15, a whole bunch of money for a nice apartment out in the counties or maybe someplace. So we cannot be afraid of allowing gentrification to occur, and we need to do it in such a way that it's programmed and no one left behind. There's enough property in Baltimore for everybody who wants to stay in Baltimore can stay in Baltimore. And I would propose coming up with a registry so that everybody who wants to stay in Baltimore, if they live in certain neighborhoods and they want to stay in Baltimore, we'll take their name down and guarantee that they have a home in there. But we have to do it in a way in which people don't feel like they're going to be moved out and they can't move back in. So that's one element. Now, I was telling earlier that I'm on the and they said I didn't have to resign, but I'm a commissioner with the Virginia Housing Development Authority. And I was telling Terry and others earlier that I see how the white people do things. If they want to do something, they can get the money to do it. Look at Amazon, and you see Bramilton, the young fellow who's trying to redevelop the Inner Harbor. He's going to the city for $500 million to deal with that redevelopment down there. Now, if I was mayor and that came across my desk, I would veto it because I think that it's unconscionable to ask for $500 million to show up that investment when you got all these ills up uptown, up in the center part of the town where you were talking about, in center part of the city. We need to deal with that Sandtown, Winchester, and up there off of was it Pennsylvania Avenue and North Avenue. We need to provide a boost so people can see some change happening. That's what we need to do. And there's ways of getting the money. We can syndicate certain things where we can get the money. Now, another thing that a lot of Baltimoreans do not know is that the General Assembly has the city by the neck also. A lot of things that need to be done in Baltimore, you can't get it done unless you go to the General Assembly. And do I need to tell you that the General Assembly is bought? Huh? I mean, they're lobbyists.
Yeah, tell us.
Who are making money in Baltimore doing things that shouldn't be done, but they're paid by lobbyists not to pass certain laws in the city, just like these boarded up houses and stuff. The tax process, the property tax process is all convoluted and it's corrupt and everything. There, people buy these tax certificates and sit on them and sit on them and sit on them, thinking that they're going to make a mint later on and stuff. So I would come in and you have to deal with a lot of that. But also the city council, many of them are questionable, if you know what I mean. Where are they getting their campaign money from?
Okay.
And
all right.
You heard of this saying, he who has the goal makes the rules, right?
Yeah, that's facts. But look, I'm gonna give you one piece of advice though, right? Baltimore is a town where we when I was hanging out, it was very neighborhood driven. So everybody kind of knows, their people, and we kind of be to ourselves, and we have conflict with the neighborhood 2 blocks up the street. They got their little crew. And so Baltimore tends to be a place where in order to get support, they got to get to know you.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm gonna really advise you to get out there and anything you see going on with grassroots organizations and people feeding the homeless and just doing things in the community. Take every opportunity you can to put your face out there, because once people know you and can talk, because people won't hear Republican, even though when I read your information, you're not a staunch Republican. You sort of like in between that thing. But anyway, people will get to know you, right? And then they'll support you. If you just pop on the scene out of nowhere, the Baltimore, character is they're gonna kind of be standoffish. So that's
I know. I've heard that for a long time. And there are people, and there's a reason why that maybe people don't necessarily want to take a liking to me, because I'm not entrenched, number one, and number two, I'm not going to be someone that can be handled. I'm not someone that can be managed. But I am going to get out.
Once people know you care, they're going to gravitate to you.
I'm getting out. That's one of the reasons why I'm on this show right now, getting out to know people, and I'm be going to churches and things. And are you're not a minister, are you?
I want to get the preachers. He sure is.
No, the reason why I don't want to
minister, but I do work in the church though.
Bobby, that's funny.
No,
he is.
The reason why I say that is because, no disrespect, but I'm just being candid. A lot of ministers are community charlatans too. You know that, right?
Oh yeah.
We understand that word charlatan a whole
lot. Look. Hey, look. In Baltimore, they even run some of them charlatans out. They ran one charlatan out 2 years ago.
They did.
You said the man wasn't you say the Mayoral candidate wasn't a stark Republican. And then you mentioned words like grassroots. You know what I'm saying? Like grassroots. Well, grassroots organizations don't like Republicans last time I checked. So that's a barrier the man has to get through. And I don't know what a stark Republican is. We should be looking for the candidate that actually supports our needs, right? In Baltimore, Maryland. That's the educational process that actually has to happen. So truth, you got to help educate the people, right? Period. on the political processes. Democrat, Republican, like what does that really mean to them?
And see, the media, we and Tarek can attest to this. The media is not that excited either, you know, because we've been trying to get press coverage in Baltimore. Was it Baltimore Sun, Fox News, Fox 45, Baltimore? What is it? Baltimore Banner. A lot of the media is there. They're in the, you know, they've cooking the books too in terms of who they want to see in there. Now, as far as being
they want people to kiss the ring.
right now, as far as being a staunch Republican, I'm a Republican according to its founding principles, not what you see out here today. You know,
Like
the
that.
Republican Party, what we see out here today, really is not. They're really not real Republicans. So, but like you said, young man, you have to educate the people, and that's going to be a big because we have to educate the people. But unfortunately, the educational system is not geared towards educating the people. They want the people to stay in the dark.
That's a fact.
Well, you might want to take a few seconds just to do, you know, like to elaborate on that a little bit. What's the difference between, the Republican principles and?
Yeah, right. Okay, let me elaborate a little bit on it. The Republican Party was founded on limited government, freedom, private enterprise, and basically the Republican Party is a management business oriented party. They tend to be more business oriented, and the Democratic Party was whatever it's supposed to be, but they call themselves for the people. But I kind of wonder about that, especially the way they've done our community for the last 50 years. We've basically breeded an underclass. But I think that if the Republican Party today were like they were intended to be, I think that situations would be much better, and especially if they could get out into the community more. But I've been involved in such a way that it's hard to get the Republican Party interested in the Black community because they feel that it's a hopeless case because they figure that we're in the tank so much for the Democrats. Why spend money or why spend resources in the Black community when they can go to Latinos or the Asians or other ethnic groups that are more amenable to their message? Now, I've been to several Republican events that other ethnic groups put on, and their mindset is totally different than ours. They're very much into education and economics. When you come to an event that's predominantly Black oriented, is always like a social justice type thing, you know, going down and having rallies and marches and, you know, and we shall overcome and different things like that. You know, and then on, what is it, in February, they're coming out of the woodwork singing and holding hands and marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, different things like that. And then the very next day, they're right back to where we were. But these other ethnic groups, they're busy. And when I say other ethnic groups, I'm even talking about the West Africans and people from the Caribbean. They're all about business. They're about the greenback, you know, because if you get the greenback, a lot of these things that we think are issues that we have won't be as acute. So that's the reason why that's one reason why I'm running, because Baltimore has some tremendous economic opportunities if it was done properly within our community. And I would like to lower the poverty rate, which I think can be done. I have some ideas about public housing. To me, I want to get rid of public housing and make them co-ops. People that have been living there forever, they should have an ownership interest in their property versus just having a receipt every month if they get that. You see what I mean? And then at the end of the day, when they leave or when they want to move out, they get a little piece of change when they leave. They have something beside nothing. And that can be done. And then also we could do some innovative ways in helping people buy their property, in terms of, you can do what they call shared equity. You can do rent to own, and put money into a pot that'll grow so that you can help finance some of these things. One problem that Baltimore has is that it's so lacking in financial resources that it always has to go to the General Assembly and get to try to get some money and stuff. And and when you go to the General Assembly, you basically always have to go hat in hand asking for stuff, and they keep you in bondage. Baltimore has enough financial resources or financial potential so that we can self-finance a lot of these things. We can, and if the General Assembly operated the way they should operate, they can give Baltimore the authority to float bonds to finance some of these types of things, and you can pay it back through the through selling of some of these properties and stuff. So, I mean, there's ways of doing it. I've seen ways of doing it. We can just get through there, but evidently a lot of the people don't want to do that, because if they did, then it would have been done. And it doesn't make sense. Maryland is one of the wealthiest states in the country, and Baltimore is in the shape that it's in. Look at Montgomery County, which is right. It's not like it can't be done. It's been done in Montgomery County, and even Prince George's County is doing fairly well economically. And I think the guts of Baltimore being on the water and everything, and you right off of 95, and with that transportation network, and being so close to DC, when they have when they bring that rapid rail coming from, was it New York down to DC, Baltimore, there's so much potential there that we're not tapping into.
Yeah, I like that. That was very interesting. And am I wrong in saying that originally, early on, the Republican Party was actually helping out African Americans?
Right. I'm a Frederick Douglass Republican. Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington type. That's who I am. And everyone knows what Frederick Douglass was all about,
Okay, I just wanted to hear that. Where you at, Brass?
Yeah, hold on. Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah. I'm gonna say,
trying to be polite.
Yeah, let Brass get in.
That's where I'm at.
Let Brass get in there. Damn, I forgot about.
Let him finish.
Now, I wanted to say one thing though. I do want to say one thing before we let you go.
Oh my God, you're gonna get your chance.
I got you because it's about what we were just talking about. It's about this because I'm reading the chat also. Read the chat. This thing that we're doing in Baltimore really is not about a Republican or Democrat thing.
Don't do the chat. Don't do the
chat. No. I understand. That's why I'm glad Don ain't doing the chat, but I can do the chat.
Okay.
Yeah,
we got the chat. We handling the chat.
But no. But I gotta address the Republican and Democrat thing. This ain't about a Republican or Democrat at all. Don is just a Republican. He's just the best man for the job right now, and he just happens to be a Republican. That's just what it is. It's not a Republican or Democrat thing that we are trying to do in Baltimore. We're not trying to do the red versus blue. If y'all know me, y'all know in 2015, I'm one of the people that was instrumental in the Baltimore gang truce when we put red versus blue together, and we marched down the city streets for Freddie Gray. You see what I'm saying? We trying to put the red and blue together again. Don is not one of those Republicans that is trying to keep this divide. He is going across. He will definitely, as far as he let me know, he would definitely work across the table. You know what I mean? And definitely in the city of Baltimore, you need that type of stuff. So I hope people understand in the chat that this ain't about red or blue.
If it was up to me, I'd run as an independent, but the bar is so high when you look at the requirements from the state board of elections, it's darn near impossible for anybody who's not one of the major parties to get on the ballot. And
me and you talked about that. Me and you, it was months. We talked for months before you actually made that decision to actually run Republican. You know what I mean? So yeah, it wasn't something half thought.
And since I'm economic minded, and the Democrats are not economic minded, I don't see there's no economic plan they've ever put forth. Only their idea of an economic plan is to come up with a nonprofit organization, which in itself means no money, or means not having any, not building wealth and everything. I'm for building wealth. I'm not going to shy away from it. I believe in wealth creation and do it honestly, and it can be done. If these young people will just live to be 55 or 60 years old and do the right thing during those years, they can have $100,000 or $200,000 by the time they get ready to retire. It's not that difficult.
Mr. Scoggins, what you think about
No,
reparations?
you gotta let that man
Nah,
stop.
let Brass
Stop
go,
it.
bro. We gotta
I'm
let
not
Brass
gonna
go.
shut up until
You
Brass go.
tripping.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Like we really tripping.
I'm being patient.
We.
I'm
You're
being very patient.
But
Being
before
very
you
patient.
start, Brass, I want to
Oh,
introduce.
hit him with the butt.
Wait a minute, we got DQ Hampton, Pseudo Killer official, also joining us on the panel. Peace to you, DQ.
Peace. Yeah,
Hey, go
I
ahead,
came on.
go ahead,
I came
DQ.
on to hear my brother. I came on to hear my brother Brass.
Right, I knew DQ wasn't going to do that, but I wanted to.
No. Go ahead, DQ.
Let me ride.
No,
Let me
I told you. I came on to hear my brother Brass.
I'm playing, yo. Somebody gotta get him, man. He ain't getting that.
He is Brass. The floor is back. You got the mic.
Thank you. So I did my little bit of research and talking to you. I'm gonna hurry up and talk before all these Baltimoreans keep cutting me off. These Baltimoreans, yeah, see them two right there. So I know I've been paying attention to the mayoral race, and I know Brandon Scott is in there now. Paying attention to a lot of the mayors that you've had, it's been basically Democratic. So that would honestly mean if it's been that long of administration, it's a lot of nepotism, a lot of people that's locked in. So, I applaud you. I am a Republican also. I don't say Black Republican. I'm a Republican. My father was a Republican. My family was Republican, going back as far as my father taught me. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and I'm going to get into my questions, and hopefully we can have a conversation. My bachelor's is in political science with a concentration in public policy. I have a master's in public administration. So what I do is I have a consultation company that helps people, especially minorities, get elected in office, but get them prepared for the process. So that's the company that my father owned, and he passed it down to me. So like you, I am a Republican, mainly focused on economics. I think Democrats need to have an underclass in order to operate, in order to even exist. And that is distasteful to me. So I've never really supported that in order to push their agenda. I helped, my father helped Sharp James. I helped Cory Booker, Ross Baraka, Eric Adams, Kathy Hochul, Letitia Adams, all these Letitia James. So I'm very versed in politics, but I got some questions that I need to ask you. But I set forth that premise of we haven't had an issue getting minorities in politics, but the economics has never followed. So a lot of my questions would be in regards to the economics. Now, in doing my research,
hold on, wait. Somebody got me out.
Yeah, if you moving around, something going on.
You gotta mute that.
Omar, please mute.
Yeah, you gotta mute.
Okay, so my questions are going to be more financial, more economic. So I did just a little bit of research to get prepared for the conversation. I saw Brandon Scott with that outlandish plan for the vacant homes in Baltimore. That plan makes no sense. It's not viable financially. It's irritating. I see things like the Harbor Place, but I see also there's things like the sale of the Hilton Hotel. But what I want to ask you about is I see that they just gave $600 million to the Baltimore Peninsula. It used to be Port Covington. Now, I want to know, and this is a two-part question, but the first part of the question is, what are you going to do if elected to grab literally some of those funds to help underserved communities? Is that going to be like a focus if and when you get elected? Are you going to go after some of that money? Because $600 million for a Baltimore Peninsula seems a little crazy. What would you do in regards to get some of that money to help underserved communities in Baltimore?
Okay, to answer your question, what I would have to do, and maybe that's something I would do, but I'm glad you asked that question because I'll take a look at it. But I'm going to have to see what's the parameters, or what's the fine print as to how that money can be assessed and everything, how you can get access to it. Now, that's not part of the COVID funds that they were talking about having to spend? Is that Is that part of that, or what? Was this something
Some
else?
of it is, a percentage of it is from what I was reading. Yes.
Right. Well, the city council probably, I'm sure they have some type of say so in that, and just like everything else, those who have the money, they're the ones that can get influence as to how that's going to be done. But what I would do is I would get, if there's anything that has to come my way that I'll have a veto power over. If it doesn't include money for the community, I'm not going to approve it. Okay. And I'm sure as mayor, some of those funds, some of that action has to be approved by the mayor. Now, let me mention this to you, and I don't know if I should. Well, you've done research, so you can see I'm not exactly a spring chicken, right?
No, you're seasoned. You're seasoned. I like to call you seasoned.
Yeah, I'm seasoned. So at this point, I'm free as a bird. I can say what I want to say, and I don't care about offending anybody, especially when it comes to the speaking truth to power. Because I think when you look back on it, that is the reason why our community is like it is because the communities in need of these communities have always been an afterthought, or if they've been thought at all. All the money, you look at that Hilton Hotel, you look at several other properties that the city has bought to prop up business interests downtown. Now, I'm a capitalist. I believe in investments and I believe in all that, but I don't believe it should be done on the backs of the people, especially in these communities where that's blighted and the people are living in squalor. I don't think that's the way to go. But to answer your question, I would, if those funds can be gotten, I will do that. But I'm sort of getting the impression that they have it done in such a way that it may be difficult to get some of those funds because they may already be wired in for that Port Covington or that area down there. But if there's anything I would have to be given my authority on, I'm going to veto it if it does not have a sufficient benefit to the community. And it might be, I don't have anything to lose. I don't need to, other than getting elected, I'm not here to be here for 20 or 30 years. So I don't need to worry about trying to make permanent friends. What I want to do is it's for the community. I'm concerned about the kids. I'm concerned about the future of the community. So, and downtown folks are going to be able to take care of themselves. But what about those up in the neighborhoods?
Right.
Because they're always an afterthought. They're always used as a reason to get such and such and such. And then when the money comes, then people get amnesia, so.
Okay. Now, my father always taught me to get involved in local government, and I agree with Terry when he was talking about, if you go to these meetings, you can get things done. We had a street problem in our area out here in New Jersey, and I worked with the council to get $1.8 million to fix the streets. So that local government is definitely the key. Right. But I'll pretty much work with any politician to help him, prep him, get him ready, because I want people to get involved in that process. I worked with Ross Baraka to work down on the waterfront down in Newark. So I'll pretty much help anybody, but you have to be more of an economic conversation. Now, would you consider, I looked into a little bit of the finances in Baltimore City, and it seems like a lot of the money, that's how I can tell the nepotism and entrenched politicians. So would you consider, as a Republican, and I help the mayor out here in my personal city do this, would you be willing to privatize some of the things like trash, the things that to encourage
let me tell you this. You hit the nail on the head, and I mentioned this I don't know if I mentioned this to Terry or not, but the trash collection, I don't see where the government has to pick up trash. That could be an opportunity for small business to take that over, the trash collection. And I would also take the Water and Sewer Authority. I said authority, but the Water and Sewer responsibility right now, I would get with Baltimore County and try to create a water sewer authority, just like they have between Montgomery County and Prince George's County. I think that anything that can be privatized, I will go through the city government with a fine-tooth comb, and what can be privatized, I'll be in favor of privatizing them, and that would be an avenue of creating small businesses,
Right.
and they can hire some of these people that are not employed right now.
Right. And
I'm a great fan of limited government. You know, I believe in that.
Yes, that's where I'm at. I've helped the mayor in our city take some of these processes, the infrastructure, and privatize it out to get small businesses in our area a chance to operate. At one time, our city did all of the landscaping, and now we got roughly 68 different landscaping companies because we farmed it out. We privatized the business. We've privatized the sanitation in my city. So I know that that's a good economic base. Juju, if you could share my screen, this would be my last question too.
I was going to ask you, can you send that information to us? You need Terry's email or something, because that's on my radar to privatize some of these government functions. You don't need a government to do a whole bunch of this stuff. They can be
not
privatized.
At all. Yeah, and I definitely will. Limited
Hey,
government.
Don, yeah. Yeah, we'll be in contact. Me and Brass is definitely going to speak after this.
Okay.
For sure. Can you share my screen? I am a big fan of the New York Times, definitely being in the Northeast. And I was reading, is my screen sharing?
Right.
I was reading an op-ed in the Times this as a reason why why hidden cities, the title of it is A Hidden Reason Why Cities Fall Apart. So Baltimore is actually the second city they named. Once vibrant cities like St. Louis, Baltimore, and Cleveland have suffered from poverty, crime, depopulation, social dysfunction, and homelessness for decades. Setbacks compounded by the decline in manufacturing, nationalization of local banks, and waves of corporate acquisitions. But there is something else hurting cities besides those well-known phenomena that we don't talk about enough: the erosion of the local establishment and the loss of civic and corporate elites. In the 1970s, virtually every city in the United States had its own network of bankers, corporate executives, developers, and political kingmakers who dominated their private associations, golf courses, and exclusive downtown clubs. Now, being that Baltimore has been Democratic for as long as Unc is old, I had to get that shot in there. But what when you come in, a lot of times they say a politician doesn't even serve really. He can't even get his agenda across the first couple times of his term, because he's cleaning up the last term. But you're going to try to come in and clean up roughly 50, 60 years of the Democratic rule in this particular case. What is your splash plan? What is the one thing, two things, three things that you're going to do to kind of move the city more in the ways of the Republican Party, an economic base, a more limited government? What are some of the things, and this is my last question, what are some of the things that you're going to do personally to break that rule of over almost 50 years of Democratic entrenchment and nepotism?
Okay, the first thing I would do is make sure that some of the things I want to do can be done. I'm not going to promise something and then when I try to do it, it can't be done. If it's certain things I want to be done and have to, because see, like I said earlier, much of what needs to be done in Baltimore is controlled by the General Assembly. And I will be unafraid to call people out if they are standing in my way of doing these things. And one of the first things I want to tackle is the educational system. The educational system hadn't been serving Baltimore for over, I would say, almost 20 years probably, or even more than that. So I would like to tackle that. And you got the unions. The unions have got their hooks into everything. You know, they're controlling it. And I think that the citizens of Baltimore, and primarily the Black citizens of Baltimore, need to know who are our real enemies. Right now, it's not the Republican Party. You know, it's not the Republican Party, because the Republican Party don't have any power in the state of Maryland. And these are local issues. So whether Donald Trump is president or not, a lot of and see, that's what they try to do. They try to, and I'm not in favor of Donald Trump, but they do, the powers to be try to use him as a whipping boy at election time when these issues are local, local issues that the people there that've been there for 50 some, at least the ideology's been there for 60 some years, are just not doing. So I would tackle the educational system. I believe in privates. I believe in charter schools. I think that if the city is so, or the state or the city is so, I mean, if they're so much behind the eight ball when it comes to education, break some of it up. They don't need to do. You don't need to have the unions in charge of everything in terms of education. Let there's some bright educators there that have charter schools, or they want to have charter schools. Let some of them. You got Morgan, you got Coppin State, you got all these other institutions there in Baltimore that can help with some of the education. We don't need to go by the state all the time. So I would tackle that. And when it comes to the old boys network downtown, I would talk truth to power. Now let me say this, and Terry, is it all right for me to go into my senior citizen thing?
Go ahead. Yeah, we,
Okay.
we love our
The,
elders.
the
In this
gentleman,
community, we love our elders.
yeah, the gentleman from New Jersey. What is your name again? Your first name that you
Albert.
Albert. Let me
Yes,
tell you
sir.
this, Albert. I'm at this point. I mean, I'm 2 years away from 80 years old. What do you think about that?
I think it's
So
impressive.
yeah. So you all don't know this yet, but when you get to a certain age, you get a sense of freedom. And when I say freedom, I mean that you can speak your mind. And I will tell these folks that they've had their feet on the necks of the Black community for God knows how long, and it's time for them to get up. And these Black politicians who don't have any backbone, it's time for them to exercise some backbone and do what needs to be done. I've seen it done. I've seen how people do it if they want to do it. And they need to stop acting like some of these other politicians who's had their with their hands in the till for all these years. See, some of them get these jobs and everything, and they forget all about the people because they're busy getting campaign money, and we know where that campaign money goes. So
Definitely.
yeah. So
So
that's it.
I want to say,
But
go ahead.
education, I mean, I'm realistic to know that everything can't be done overnight, but I do think we can start to tackle the educational system. And as far as Al, you mentioned Brandon Scott's plan for the vacant housing. Housing is my background. That's one reason why I got into this. And he's talking about $3 billion. We all know that he's not going to get $3 billion. That's just campaign ploy. The election is next year. So he's coming up with all sorts of dog and pony show type things to get reelected. But he's not going to get that. What needs to be done is that we need to do this in chunks in terms of going to different parts of the city, especially in that center part, and take it neighborhood by neighborhood and look and see what can be redone or what should be done. A lot of the houses can be restored, and some of them just need to be torn down, and they're detriment. They're just standing in the way.
I appreciate being on the panel with you. I just want to say before I finish, Terry, I saw your work on the ground. One of the pseudo killers that talked to me, Sosa, about you. I did my research into you also, and one of the things that I really appreciate is a lot of people get up here and they talk and they do YouTube videos and they have Black City plans and all these different things, but they haven't actually put boots on the ground for our people in regards to underserved communities, protecting the youth in our impoverished communities. I saw your work with Freddie Gray, so I want to tell you, whether we call you Terry Sims or Truthman, whatever we want to be called, it is a privilege and an honor to be on a panel with you today because you put your feet where your mouth is, if you understand where I'm coming from. So I appreciate you, Mr. Scoggins. I wish you the best. I wish you all the luck in your campaign. I know you've been in the DMV area for roughly 50 plus years. You're a child of Black Wall Street, and you're Republican and an HBCU graduate, much like myself. Like I said, you graduated from Hampton University when it was an institute, and that says a lot. So I appreciate the fact that you still have the will and the vigor to get out there and represent your fraternity, represent your family and your name. I also love the property company you own. I own a property company also. So I believe in entrepreneurship and property ownership. I wish you the best. And we'll be getting together. I'll get together with Truth and see if there's anything I could do, whether it be financially. I'm a member of Black Pack. So see if maybe there's some way we could push some funds your way. And then I appreciate the time that you would take almost 2 hours just to talk to a random group of people that may or may not be voting for you, but that says a lot to your character. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
If I can get that article, if I can get the information, I'll look up that article you mentioned in the New York Times.
No problem. I'll post a link in the chat. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Could you get that, Terry, for me, that link?
We got you covered, Mr. Scoggins, for sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Before we continue, we have
we got your back.
We have one more addition.
We got your back.
I'm gonna let you have it in a minute, Black Panther. But we do have, excuse me, Bobby. But we do have another addition, and it's Black Panther as we know her, but Miss Lisa. And if you want to take the time out right now, Miss Lisa, to ask your question, the mic is yours.
Good evening, panel chat.
Good evening, Miss Lisa, Pseudo Killer Army.
Good evening, Auntie.
Hi, everybody. I just had one question, Mr. Scoggins. Appreciate you coming on as well, Mr. Sims. I live in Texas, in Dallas. So I've heard of all these bond programs and seen them in action. And then at the end of them, they're flopping and they're not working for the people. They're working for the government or politicians and everybody else, but not for the people. I just want to know what, with your bond program, would you say would be different from the others that would probably or may work? That's it.
Okay. Well, number one, I'm working with an organization now that deals with these tax credit and what they call low income tax credit funds that each state in each of the states in the United States has authorization from their General Assembly to create these what they call these housing authorities that can float bonds at a lower interest rate to developers to do these things. Now, the bonds can be successful. I think they are successful. The key is making sure that that particular bond issue goes to where it's supposed to go. And I'm in favor of more of the bond money going towards home ownership, because I don't think that we should just go around creating a bunch of what they call perpetual renters. Now, out in Arizona, I believe it is, their bond money, a lot of it is going towards home ownership, where you give people, you help people with the down payment assistance. It could be, you could help them in terms of, it can be a solid mortgage, or let's say the property costs I would say $300,000, maybe $100,000 of it could be a solid mortgage that does not accrue interest, that'll be placed against the property. And as the person who's living there, while they're living there, it de-escalates in terms of going from 100,000 to 90,000 to 80,000. Maybe each year for 10 years, each year $10,000 will be knocked off of it in terms of in terms of the debt against the property, and the person has to be an owner occupant. So there are ways in which these things can be done, but they are done at a local level. Now, if they're not being done in Texas, that's probably a local or a state issue, and perhaps the builders or the developers have an in with the General Assembly or whoever authorizes those bonds to do the way they're talking to the way they're being done there. But in Maryland, if I'm involved, I'm going to make sure it goes towards home ownership. We'll get the people financially, give them counseling. I'm involved with the housing counseling agency now that gets people financially set, financially prepared to be able to purchase a home. If they have credit issues, we work on them getting their credit straight. We counsel them in terms of letting them know that if they're trying to buy a property in 2 years, we want them to pay down some debt or don't go out and get buy a new car. There's certain things that people just don't understand when it comes to managing their money. And when I become mayor, I'm going to make sure that financial literacy is an integral part of the curriculum in our schools, starting in the maybe in the secondary school level. It should be age appropriate. So when people graduate from high school, they should know something about money and the importance of keeping your credit good.
Okay, thank you. That was a good answer. And if things don't work out in Baltimore, come on to Texas. We can take you.
Yeah,
we'll take you right on in Texas.
Yeah, I
Get
got
your own man. Get your own man.
And
y'all terrible. Y'all can't have them. We keeping them.
And I did appreciate and like the I'm sorry, Juju. I just said one question. The program you said about the children learning trades in the summer, and as they work on rebuilding the houses or whatever. I believe that would be a great program. I like that. That is really a good thing, because a lot of the kids don't do nothing but sit around, watch TV, and play games in the summer.
Right.
And I mean, like me myself, my kids, whether they needed it or not, they went to summer school every year because they were not going to sit at home and do nothing. But I think that's a great that would be a great program. And again, appreciate you for coming. Thank you for having me on the show, Juju.
Oh, can I ask one question? Not just you, but to the panel in general, because one of the things that we didn't talk about, and I really want to touch on it, even if it's briefly, depending on the time. I can stay here for all night. But one
Or
thing
we
I
can bring
want.
you back, Mr. Scoggins.
Yeah, but let me just ask this, because I
Go
think it
ahead.
needs to be touched upon, and that is the strengthening of the Black family. What do you all recommend? I believe that we should come up with a way in which we can bring these mothers and fathers back together, because one of the reasons we're having so much social problems with some of the young kids, especially the young men, is because the fathers are not in the home. So I would like to figure out a way how we can get them back in the home, even if, I mean, I'm kind of old school, so I'm not too big on this shacking and everything, but I would be willing to, I would be willing to sort of, how should I put it, turn a blind eye to that. But I just want to see the mother and fathers back in the household, and because I think that this is something that people are not talking about, but I think there's a divide between the Black male and the Black female. There's looks like there's competition, or there's something going on there that's not too helpful to our communities. And I think that if we can bring the mother and father back into the home, even if we have to help them with my housing plan, help, a family, mother and father and kids, help them get a house, bring them back under the roof. I think that's very important.
Can I say this as a divorced parent? My ex-husband and we got divorced, and we still, help with the children, still do. And I just think you have to decide that the kids are more important than yourselves, because it was whatever they needed, whatever we needed to do for them, that's what we did. And to this day, we can go and have a dinner. The five of us now, because we have a grandbaby, but we can go and have a dinner. We can have conversations. We can have all, both of the children over. And I mean, my ex-husband comes to Christmas Eve at my house. We open gifts. He has always done Thanksgiving with my family. But you just have to decide that the children are more important than yourselves, I believe, and just love them. I mean, my kids, every day, there's not a day go by I do not tell my children I love them. And I show them every day how much I love them. And you have to, you are not the important factor. You have to choose. It's not just the let me get my child when I can, or let me just get them on the weekends or anything like that. It's got to be 100% about the children.
We
Let me
agree.
jump in with you, Auntie.
Well, absolutely no. I'm sorry, Joel. Maybe we'll have, and hopefully we will have you on some more in other platforms also that we can consider like our constituents. Okay, Mr. Scoggins. But we are at the 2-hour mark going over, and we don't want to make it too long because then it becomes a point where people are not even going to pay attention to the video. We want people to see this. I think some excellent points were made. I loved everything that I heard from you, Mr. Scoggins. I mean, pretty amazing, and I hope people really can understand and get what you were putting down. I hope they can, and maybe they couldn't, but I definitely caught it. I don't know everything, but I know some things, and I like what I'm hearing, Republican or not. Like again, that's beyond the point. My stance has always been, who's going to do what we need to be done? Who's going to speak for us in a real way? I don't care what party you're in. We need someone to speak for us and speak up for us in a real way. So, Mr. Scoggins,
Thank you for having me on. I'm very honored.
absolutely. And do you have any closing remarks? And then Terry, I'll let you have some closing remarks, and we'll schedule to possibly have you come join us again.
Okay,
But
the closing remarks I would have would be very brief, and that is, I'm very glad to participate in this this program. And anybody who wants to get in touch with me, they can. I'm sure they will be able to get the information, and we can have another dialogue offline if so.
Absolutely. And thank you again. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your effort you're putting forth in the community. Thank you for your service, to the country. And I appreciate you. And I hope that we all can appreciate what you're doing and what you are going to do. I'll speak it into existence for the for Baltimore City. Okay. Terry.
He must be on mute, I guess. I don't know.
If you're speaking, Terry, well,
give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Hold up. No.
Okay. I'll give you a couple seconds. But yeah, I think this is a great conversation. We got some great feedback in the chat.
I got a phone call.
And yeah, this is pretty awesome. And I want to do more of this, regardless of the outcome. If you ever have any time, PK on politics. Let's facilitate that to get some political education and political understanding amongst our people. So it can lead to more active political engagement in our respective communities.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got a phone call right when you was asking me to say something.
I'm sorry, it's all good.
Like it messed up my whole sound and everything. I think y'all can hear me clearly though, so we can continue. But I wanted to speak directly to Baltimoreans. Baltimoreans, I swear, I am an activist. I have been an activist. If you look at my track record, I can bring up my track record. I can literally bring how I organized a lot of things that y'all think just happened by coincidence, that actually was people that was involved that actually created these things to happen. Baltimore gang truce in 2015, 2020, no riots in Baltimore. All this stuff was actually by people like myself being involved in stopping these things. Now, what I want to tell y'all is I actually myself, you see what I'm saying? We found each other. It's not that Don actually contacted me. You see what I'm saying? And when we built with each other, this thing was like destined. You know what I mean? And my thing is, we have literally the only viable candidate in Baltimore City. I know you think Brandon Scott, but Brandon Scott is, I mean, he's a Democrat. He's been, from the time came to city council, they've been molding him to be mayor of the city. They molded him to be mayor of the city. He's a mold. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm not saying this. That's what they said. Sheila Dixon, I'm not going to speak on it. I'm not going to, I believe everybody deserves second chances. So I'm not even going to speak on her whole track record. But Sheila Dixon is Sheila Dixon. We have a guy that's literally trying to fix Baltimore. That's trying to fix the youth. We're not trying to displace the problem. We're not trying to put it into other communities like what's been happening over the past years. That's why you see your communities jumping off, like the people that live in Baltimore County and Harford County and Montgomery County and PG County. The reason that you see your communities jumping off the way you do is because certain political powers within Maryland has been displacing populations into your community. And that's why it's happening. But what we want to do is actually solve the problem so nobody has to deal with this situation. And the problem is education. The problem is poverty. We want to cure these things. That's all we want to do. You know what I mean? Like literally, like, yo, the best candidate in this race right now, and the more we actually do these interviews like this, and the more we actually show y'all what we are about, you're gonna see for yourself. It's not nothing that we're not trying to play politics. They don't even like us right now. We're not getting no support from nowhere. We're doing this ourselves. Like literally, we're doing this ourselves. Like literally, we have no support from no media. They're supporting Sheila Dixon right now. But this is the primary election. We ain't made it to the general election yet. The general elections is when, and I want to explain this to Baltimoreans because I didn't understand it at first. If you are registered as a Democrat, you cannot vote for a Republican in the primary. You are designated by your standing on documents that you declared yourself as a Democrat. So you got to vote for a Democrat. But in general election is different. Do not think you do not have to come back out and vote. You definitely have to come back out and vote. Especially if you don't want that Democrat to win.
You can
think about it like we do the FanDuel thing, right?
As a Democrat,
you got multiple candidates. I'm sorry.
As a Democrat, you can vote for a Republican in the general primary. I mean, in the general election, a Democrat.
And the general election is the only time that you can vote for a Republican. In the primary, and that's what they're doing right now. That's why you see Sheila Dixon on the news already. They're playing like they're only referring to the people in this primary that's getting ready to come up. The general election ain't till November. That's the real election. And like the brother said earlier, a lot of people in Baltimore don't know that it's really in November that the decision is made. And it's because for a lot of years in Baltimore City that we only had Democrats run. Nobody Republican ran in Baltimore because of the system that's set up in Baltimore. But your houses are still falling on each other under that system. I'm talking about since 1950 something. Like no. I'm gonna go off the video I created since 1971. It has not been a Republican anything in Baltimore. And I don't know whether that means something. I just know that we do not need to keep the same system that we have been keeping that kept us in the same condition that we are in right now. And it's just that simple with me. And I'm gonna thank everybody for having us on. We are definitely fighting this mountain because it's definitely a mountain. Don't get it twisted. Maryland governance is, and I'm learning so much. These people really are entrenched. They really are plotting and planning and doing a whole bunch of stuff to keep themselves in power instead of doing the right thing. We got the best candidate involved in the race. Everybody should be supporting them. Everybody should be supporting them, like no matter what demographic you are. but people have difference of opinion because they are literally like, oh, she can do something for me, or I know her. You know what I mean? Instead of what's best for the community. And I think we need to stop that. And I think that's what we on right now. I'm in the process of removing the bullshit from Baltimore. And I need y'all with me. Because I can't do it by myself. And I'm gonna end it with that.
All right, then.
All right.
I like that. Let's get it popping. Thank you again, Mr. Scoggins. Terry?
So you an AKA, huh?
No. And I did wear this dress too.
I was looking at that colors.
My aunt is laughing in the other room. No. I actually wanted to pledge Delta, but that's a whole nother story. But we got a lot of, pink and green, it is what it is. But we'll speak some more, Mr. Scoggins. And
Okay,
thank you,
thank
Terry.
you.
Keep up the awesome work. I love it.
Okay.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next time. And hopefully we'll be doing more of these, PK on politics shows, because this was awesome. I love this. I really did. So until next time, y'all, good luck in the race. Like I said, I spoke it to existence. So let's get it. And yes, I would love for it to be an example for the rest of us to follow.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, peace. And yeah, Terry, we got to do this again. But thank y'all for showing up. Thank y'all for supporting. And yeah.
Okay.
Killas going to continue to keep bringing that content.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
ladies
you.
and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's DQ, baby. Pseudo Killas, what up?